Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a whole set of sources, articles, research papers, independent analyses, and they're all pointing towards something, well, pretty significant in AI. Mm-hmm. A massive leap in performance. We're talking about a new major model, Grok4.
That's right.
So our mission to really distill what this actually means for the AI landscape and maybe more importantly for you listening. Okay, let's unpack this.
Exactly. And Grok4, I mean, it's not just being presented as another small step. The positioning is very much state of the art.
Right.
And the early data we're seeing, it shows genuinely strong performance across, a whole range of benchmarks. In some cases, it's actually surpassing the leading models we've been watching closely.
So when our sources use that specific phrase, state of the art on almost all benchmarks, I mean, that feels like a really bold claim.
It is.
Especially because, Grok3, the predecessor, it never quite got there, did it? It wasn't really state of the art.
No, it wasn't.
So what's the independent proof? Is there solid evidence backing that up this time?
Yeah, that's the crucial question, isn't it? And what's fascinating here is, well, the independent testing seems to really support it.
Okay.
Artificial Analysis, they're a pretty well-known third-party tester. They've noted this is actually the first time their intelligence index has put XAI, that's Grok4's developer, right in first place.
Wow. Ahead of OpenAI and Google.
Ahead of OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, their latest models. Specifically, Grok4 hit an index score of 73.
73.
Yeah, and that clearly beats OpenAI 03 and Gemini 2.5 Pro. And just for context, Grok 3 Mini, which was, decent, scored 67.
So that jump, 67 to 73, it's not just a few points then.
No, it really isn't. It suggests a model that can handle much more complex reasoning, moving from just being a strong general model to a genuine problem solver, especially, and this seems key, when it has the right tools.
The tools. That seems to be a recurring theme. And here's where it gets really interesting, right? Let's dig into some of the specific benchmarks, like the humanities last exam. Our sources were calling this one of the toughest released earlier this year.
Mm-hmm. Very difficult.
And Grok4 apparently hit a whopping 44.4% on it.
Yeah, it's high.
But the thing that really stood out to me was the impact of tools like nearly a 40% improvement compared to without tools. That's huge. How is it using them so effectively?
Well, it seems to come down to using what's called a multi-agentic system.
Multi-agentic, like different parts working together.
Kind of, yeah. You can think of it like Grok4 using several mini AIs or specialized programs, almost like a team. Each tackles a different piece of the problem. And when it used that approach, that team approach, its score on that humanities exam jumped to almost 50%.
50%.
Almost. But it's important to differentiate here. A standard pre-trained Grok4, even with some reinforcement learning, that's the RL, the sort of trial and error training.
Okay.
That version gets about 27% on its own, which is, pretty much on par with Gemini 2.5 Pro.
So the base model is strong, but the tools plus this multi-agent thing just unlocks another level.
Exactly. Which makes comparing it directly to other models a bit tricky if they don't have that same kind of tool access set up,
That makes sense. That multi-agent capability, that's a really significant point.
Okay.
Okay, so if it's handling complex humanities stuff so well, what about, like, pure logic, abstract problems?
Right.
Let's look at ARC AGI2. For listeners who might not know, this benchmark tests abstract reasoning, generalizing from just a few examples. Like a fluid intelligence test for AI, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Very challenging.
And Grok4 is reported as the best performer here, hitting 16%. Now, okay, 16% doesn't sound massive in isolation.
Right.
But given what ARC AGI2 is testing, what does that 16% actually tell us?
Well, that 16% is the top score publicly available right now. And it's significantly better than the previous best, which is Opus at only 8%.
So it almost doubled it.
It was double the previous best score, yeah. It even beats some purpose-built solutions people submitted on Kaggle for this task. And what's fascinating here, as Mike Noob pointed out, is this kind of counterintuitive thing.
Yeah.
And AI gets over 50% on the humanities exam, really hard for humans, but then only 16% on ARC AGI2, which feels, comparatively easier for us.
Wow.
It just shows that AGI2 is still incredibly hard for current AIs. That 16% is actually a real step forward in abstract reasoning for a general model like this.
Okay.
Although there is a little bit of ambiguity we should mention about whether that ARC score is from the heavy Grok 4 version or the standard one. Most think it's the standard, though.
Got it. So humanities, abstract reasoning.
Yeah.
Where else is it leading? I remember seeing something about GPQA Diamond and coding.
Yes, absolutely. On GPQA Diamond, that's the one testing expert level Q&A across different fields. Grok4 hit an all-time high of 88%.
88. That's quite a jump from Gemini 2.5 Pro's 84%.
And it's a substantial leap, yeah. And it leads in the coding index, too, which is pretty impressive because, well, XAI is apparently still planning to release a specialized coding model in a few weeks.
So the base model is already very strong at coding.
Seems like it has a very solid foundation, yes.
Okay, so we've seen these really impressive results across the board, but what does this all mean? Like, how are they making these models so much better?
Right.
Our sources seem to pin it mainly on 10 times more RL compute between Grok 3 and Grok 4. Can you unpack that a bit? What does 10x more RL compute actually translate to?
Sure. So RL compute is basically the amount of computer power they threw at that reinforcement learning stage we mentioned earlier.
The trial and error part.
Exactly. The reward-based training. It means they invested significantly more resources, like 10 times more, in refining Grok 4 using that method compared to what they did for Grok 3.
Yeah.
And the suggestion is that, if you have enough compute power and you design your RL process well, you can squeeze out a lot more performance from these big language models. Even if the starting point, the initial pre-training data, and maybe the basic architecture were kind of similar between the two versions.
So it's less about just throwing more data at the initial training and more about really intensive optimization afterwards.
It seems that way, yes. It's about refining what's already there, but doing it to an unprecedented degree with all that compute.
That's a really key insight. Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the practical side. Using Grok 4, speed, how fast is it?
The reported speed right now is 75 output tokens per second.
75, is that?
Good.
Bad. Average.
Solid. But this is where we see a trade-off starting to emerge. It's actually slower than OpenAI O3 and Gemini 2.5 Pro. Both of which are known for being pretty awesome speed-wise. So Grok 4 looks like it might be the slowest among these current top-tier frontier models. Maybe a bit faster than Opus 4, possibly, but definitely slower than the OpenAI and Google offerings.
Okay, so performance is top-notch, but speed takes a bit of a hit. What about cost? Is all this performance going to break the bank?
Well, interestingly, for the base Grok 4 model, the pricing is apparently exactly the same as Grok 3.
Oh, okay. That's good news.
It is, considering the performance jump. However, it is still more expensive than Gemini 2.5 Pro and OpenAI O3.
Right.
And the real potential cost increase comes with these other versions they're hinting at, like a Grok Heavy or Super Grok Heavy.
Okay.
The projections for that are maybe around $300 a month, and there's talk of a Super Grok at maybe $30 a month.
$300 a month? Wow.
Yeah. So for that absolute top tier access, it could end up being, well, probably the most expensive large language model you can readily use, which I suppose reflects that huge compute investment we just talked about.
Makes sense. And one more thing on how it works. It's described as a reasoning model that thinks before answering. Mm-hmm. What does that mean in practice? Does it change the output quality, and are there any, developer implications?
So thinks before answering generally implies it's doing more internal work, maybe some kind of internal monologue or chain of thought process before it gives you the final answer.
Right.
Rather than just predicting the next word directly, this usually means the answers are, higher quality, more coherent, more logically sound, especially if you ask it something complex.
Okay.
But this raises an important question about transparency.
How so?
The XAI API at the moment doesn't actually share those internal reasoning tokens, the steps it took to get the answer.
So you can't see it's working out.
Exactly. And while that's kind of becoming standard practice now for API providers, unfortunately, it does mean developers can't easily see how the model reached its conclusion, which can be super useful for, debugging or trying to improve things.
Yeah, I could see that.
And just one other quick point for users. The version of Grok 4 you might use on X or Twitter, that could be different from the raw API model.
Oh.
Yeah, consumer apps often have extra instructions or logic layered on top that can change the model's style or behavior compared to the base API version. So, just something to keep in mind.
Right, good point. Okay, so let's try and sum up this deep dive. Grok 4 clearly has made some really significant strides in performance. It's leading on tough benchmarks like ARC-AGI-2, GPQA Diamond, showing amazing results on the humanities exam, especially when you give it tools and let it use that multi-agent approach. And it leads the intelligence and coding indexes.
Definitely impressive on the capability front.
But there are trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
The speed currently seems a bit slower than some main competitors.
Yeah, that's a factor.
And if you want access to those potentially even more powerful heavy versions, it looks like it'll come with a pretty hefty price tag.
That seems likely, yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Grok4's success, which seems largely down to that huge increase in RL compute.
A 10x factor.
Right. It really highlights this ongoing trend. It shows there's still huge potential to get more performance out of these LLMs if you invest enough in compute and, crucially, in those sophisticated RL training methods.
So it's not just about making models bigger and bigger.
Not solely, no. It suggests smarter, more intense optimization is also a major path forward for pushing the boundaries of AI.
Absolutely. Which leads to maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Considering Grok4 is amazing, but sometimes kind of weird.
Yeah.
Performance profile, like being great at humanities, but struggling more relative to humans on ARC ATI2.
That counterintuitive aspect.
Yeah. And then you factor in the different costs and speeds.
Yeah.
How might all these trade-offs actually influence the way people and businesses choose and use AI models in the next few months? Especially as we see maybe even more specialized versions coming out for things like coding or handling images and video. It really makes you think about finding the right tool for the specific job, doesn't it?